What's up YouTube? My name is Measley and welcome to the second week of the TPL, aka our Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Wi-Fi League that we have going on. This week we are playing against Ryan, aka EDahl, aka the coach of the North Dakota Noibats. As you can see, it's a little bit less of a put together setup. I've been super busy the last few weeks and we barely even had time to play this game. And a little bit of a disclaimer, I had people over when I was playing my game against Ryan, so I won't have live commentary, but I will go through the video, go through the battle, and kind of give my thoughts throughout that whole process. So let's just jump into the team builder and this kind of wacky setup that I have going on here. So looking at Ryan's team, we have Ogerpon, Hearthflame, Tornadus, Therian, Sceptile, Goldango, Gardevoir, Primarina, Bellibolt, Duraludon, Incineroar, and Toxicroak. So it's a pretty scary team. We have another Unburdened Mon with the Sceptile. Ogerpon is just super scary. It's so fast and so hard hitting. Tornadus, Therian, there's a lot that you can do with that with Prankster. He just has a really scary team overall. So starting off, I wanted to bring the Sneasler because Dire Claw hits his first. He has a lot of poison weaknesses with Ogerpon, Sceptile, Primarina, Gardevoir. So I thought that Sneasler would be a really great bring with Dire Claw. And we had that Dig Power Herb with Unburdened synergy going because looking at his team, he has 5 Pokemon that are all weak to ground. And then Shadow Claw is just some coverage in case it was like an Air Balloon Goldango, Shadow Claw would be able to take care of that pretty well. Next up, we've got Landorus, who is running a Clear Amulet to try and prevent that Incineroar Intimidate, and also a Parting Shot coming out from Incineroar. And also, we're running Intimidate against his team for Ogerpon, Sceptile, even Duraludon or Incineroar. He has a few physical attackers that I think that Intimidate will help out a lot there. And then we're running Gravity, which is a bit of a unique move. So we'll be able to hit Tornadus and a Goldango using an Air Balloon with our Earthquake, and it also increases the accuracy of all moves by 1.67 times. So Stone Edge will be a 100% chance to connect with any Mon. So that's really good. And then also we have Stealth Rocks just to try and get up some hazards against Ryan's team. And also the speed that we have going here is calc to outspeed his entire team except for, any Choice Scarf Mons and those top 3 Pokemon that Ryan has. Now after Landorus Therian, we have Electros, who is running a Citrus Berry along with Levitate and Coil. So his Coil set is just kind of like a defensive. I thought about running another Assault Vest to try and counteract the Primarina, but I thought that this would be a unique and pretty fun set. Supercell is just a super powerful move. So I thought is hopefully to get a Coil off, get that Citrus Berry going, so then we can, use Acrobatics against those Mons that resist Supercell Slam. And then we're running Terra Electric because, we keep that no weaknesses. There wasn't really too much of a reason to run Terra Steel. So Terra Electric, we're just going to be doing crazy damage with Supercell Slam. Next up, we have Inteleon, who is running the Landsat Berry. And what this berry does is it gives us the Focus Energy effect. Now, originally, I had Focus Energy on this Mon, but then later I found out that you actually can't learn it in Gen 9. So I ended up going with the Landsat Berry to still hopefully get that Focus Energy effect, and then also Substitute. So we'll be able to outspeed everything except we'll be speed tied with a max speed Sceptile, and Tornadus is 1 point higher than us. So hopefully we could maybe get some substitutes going, or maybe a substitute spam to get that Landsat Berry. For the Focus Energy. So Inteleon is just a really good special attacker, and then we have quite a few good coverage moves on Inteleon. Next up, we have Heatran, who is running an Assault Vest, who really just bodies Mons like Tornadus Therian, Goldango, Gardevoir. A lot of his big special attackers, Heatran has really good resistances against those. And then these are the same moves we actually ran last week, but they are just really great coverage against Ryan's entire team. And then lastly, we have Hatterene, who is also running Assault Vest because Hatterene kind of covers the special attackers that Heatran doesn't. So for example, Primarina, Hatterene has a pretty good matchup against that because of Giga Drain. We can heal. If his Primarina is also Assault Vested, we'll be able to beat it with Giga Drain, getting that HP back. Also, Future Sight is just a super powerful move that kind of forces Ryan to make certain decisions that he might not want to. And then also just some coverage moves like Mystical Fire for Goldango, and then Dazzling Gleam for just a strong stab move. Alright, hopping into our game against Ryan, aka EDahl, aka the captain of the North Dakota Noibats. So I'm seeing, honestly, a lot of special attackers with Goldango and Primarina and Tornadus, and potentially a Sceptile. I kind of want to run an Assault Vest lead here. I thought about doing Landorus to try and get up some Stealth Rocks, and also an Intimidate would be nice to get off on, you know, almost half of his team. So that could have been nice, but we decided to go with Heatran instead because I think that the Assault Vest that he has and just the matchup that we had against the rest of the team was a pretty great lead. So here we go, hopping into our game against EDahl. So we are going to lead off with Heatran like you saw earlier, and we're going to see that he's sending out the Shiny Incineroar. I love Shiny Incineroar. I think it looks great. So my immediate thought here is that he is probably going to go for a parting shot because he doesn't really have, I didn't think that this Incineroar was going to do much against me. I just assumed that he would go for a parting shot and get some momentum going. So I just thought I'd go for a Power Gem. If he stays in, it does a lot of damage. If he swaps out, hopefully it would be into Tornadus. If he was expecting an Earth Power. But he decides to stay in, so we get off the Power Gem, and it does a little over half, and he goes for an Earthquake off the bat. So as you can see throughout this game, I kind of overthink things a lot. You know, I kind of expect Ryan to do a lot more swapping, but he kind of just hits the mons that's in front of him, and honestly, I respect it because once you get to certain levels, then, you know, people just don't really expect it a lot. So I decided to end up going into Inteleon. I think it just really has a great matchup. I think it's going to force Ryan to swap out so he can get a free sub up. And we got that shiny Inteleon. His name is based off of James Bond. I think Inteleon's a very James Bond character. So, you know, he goes, Bond, James Bond. That was kind of the points behind Inteleon's name there. So we're just going to get up a substitute here. I'm kind of expecting him to swap out or go for a parting shot. And we'll see what he brings out. So Ryan decides to swap out Incineroar. He doesn't even go for a parting shot. I think he was just really scared about getting hit with a Stab Water type move and just getting destroyed. So he sends out Lady Gaga, aka the Primarina. And this thing is a bit of a threat to me. It's a really big tank. Inteleon doesn't really have a lot that I can cover against it, so I just decided to go for an Air Slash. I didn't really see a reason to swap out with having a substitute up, so we might as well get just some extra damage there. So he's going to go for a Moonblast. And my thoughts, you know, I did some calcs, and looking at the damage that I did, I kind of just expected this to be Assault Vested, because that did, I mean, little to nothing. But granted, we weren't modest on Inteleon. We were just 252 special attack. So I decided to go into Jkkayy because this was my answer against Primarina. So here we go. We are going to swap out, throw in the Hatterene, and we'll see what this Primarina decides to go against us here. So he's going to go for a Psychic. I think he was expecting probably another Moonblast. And so we would go into Sneasler. So I was checking the team there to see why he would go for a Psychic at that point. I think Ryan was just trying to go for a big read, which honestly I respect it. But we're going to end up going for a Future Sight here. I didn't really expect him to stay in against this, to be completely honest. So I went for a Future Sight because I figured if he does stay in, we'll get some big damage. But Ryan actually has a really cool set here, which is Hyper Voice and Throat Spray, which boosts his special attacks. So now he's going to be doing a lot against us, which is super duper scary. And I was not expecting that. My calcs were apparently a little bit off, so I just wanted to start getting some damage in and hopefully get some health back with Giga Drain. So we barely survived that. So we got quite a bit of damage off with Giga Drain. And now my thought was, I'm gonna die to another Moonblast, and there's not really something else on my team that really wants to take a +1 attack from a Primarina. So in this thing, if he stays in, he's gonna go down to the Future Sight, or he'll swap out and something else is gonna take a lot of damage. So I figured that we would just go for a Giga Drain here. I mean, Hatterene, its job was to take care of this Primarina, and if Primarina stays in, then it has absolutely done its job. So I was happy with it. I mean, not completely happy. I didn't want to lose 2 Mons right away off the bat like this, but it's the game of Pokemon. You give and you take. So he goes for a Moonblast, and that takes down our Shakira, but obviously with our Future Sight, that is going to also take out their Primarina. So now it's 5v6, and their Incineroar is pretty weak. So now it's decently even game, but not exactly where I would like to be. So next up, I was thinking about what the best option is, and most of his team is now physical attackers, so I figured that Blue Steel here, the Landorus, would be a good option. We can get Intimidate. Maybe if he goes into Incineroar like he led earlier, then we can get just a big Gravity or Earthquake, or maybe even go for a Stealth Rock, expecting him to swap out. So we see that Ryan ends up going into String Cheese, aka his Goldango. And this would normally be a good matchup for Landorus because obviously we have that ground typing, but Goldango has a really high special attack and we're more of a physically defensive Mon, so this is a little bit of a scary situation. However, after running a few calcs, I thought that either A, we're going to outspeed this thing if it's like a Choice Specs, or if they outspeed us with a Choice Scarf, they can't kill us. So I just want Blue Steel to go ahead and Earthquake the heck out of this Goldango. So we get the Earthquake off, but not after a huge Make It Rain from Ryan's part. So obviously this thing is Choice Scarf, so we were able to eat that attack and KO it with our own Earthquake. So now even Mons, however, our Landorus is super weak, and we do outspeed quite a bit of his team, but it's not looking too hot for our Landorus here. So Ryan is going to end up going out into Burb, aka his Tornadus Therian. So we got a bit of a Tornadus and Landorus match off here, but I was scared that this thing was just going to go for a Heat Wave, and Electros just eats all the hits from this thing. Even though our Electros isn't like AV or super specially defensive, we just have a really good type matchup spread against this Tornadus. So I end up going into him here. So now the hope is that I can get off a coil against this thing, assuming that Ryan's going to want to swap out against us. So then we'll be +1, or if he tries to go for an attack again after this Psychic, obviously you can see that we eat that up super well. So if he goes for another attack, that'll hopefully put us in Citrus Berry range so we can get that boosted Acrobatics. But otherwise, I think a coil would have been a really great move here. However, as you can see, I'm going to Terrasilize, obviously, because there's really no reason to not Terrasilize. And we are going to end up going for a Supercell Slam. I think the reason that I went for this is because I thought that maybe he was going to bring his Incineroar, so there wasn't really much of a reason to start setting up with Electros here. So I just went for the Supercell Slam to hopefully get rid of this thing, and then Sneasler will be able to have a much better time matchup against the rest of Ryan's team. So here we are, we're going for the terrestrialization, Terra Electric, first time coming out because last week we had Terra Steel. So I'm really excited for this to absolutely cook. So Ryan ends up going for a Tailwind, so his team is going to be super speedy, but honestly that was kind of okay with me because now I can just get a really powerful Supercell Slam off. Luckily we hit. If we missed that off a 5% chance to miss, I would have been really upset, I'm not gonna lie, because we would have taken 50% crash damage from that, and we don't need that. So we get off that Supercell Slam and absolutely KO his Tornadus easily. So after showing that I am a physical attacker, I assumed that he would go into Incineroar, but he actually goes into Shrek, aka the Ogerpon of the Flame variety. So obviously this was the only real reason that I still had Landorus alive, that I wanted to keep him, is for an Intimidate. So I decided to go into Landorus, but after I clicked Landorus, I got a little scared because what if he goes for a Swords Dance, because then he's +1 with an extra Tailwind up behind him. So this thing could have been really scary if Ryan went for an immediate Swords Dance. But luckily, he ends up going for the Ivy Cudgel, which obviously is going to kill our Landorus. But that kind of saved me a little bit. I got a little bit scared there. So we are going to swap into our next Mon, which I decide that the best option would be Slytherin right here. Now the hope is he's -1, so I'm going to be able to tank a hit, and that'll put me into Acrobat or the Citrus Berry range, so I can eat that Citrus Berry, get my acrobatics to 110, and I should be able to OHKO this thing if it's just max attack, max speed. So we end up going for the acrobatics here, but Ryan is not playing games anymore. He's gonna go for a Swords Dance. He's not just clicking buttons. He's gonna change up his game here and start to set up. So I go for an acrobatics, and that doesn't quite kill because it's only base 55. We did get a critical hit, so that did a lot of damage, but honestly in the end game that doesn't really matter for anything else throughout the game. I think anything else that I would have gone for would have killed him. Now my thought process here is that this thing gets Trailblaze, and if it gets another boost in speed even after Tailwind, my team is absolutely done for. So I figured that the best option was to stay in as Electros and just go for an acrobatics, and maybe I'll be able to survive. Probably not at all. I think the calcs said that at +1 I was just a goner. But if he went for a Trailblaze, I would have eaten that and been able to take him out, preventing that sweep. But sadly he just goes for an Ivy Cudgel and Slytherin goes down. So now my only real option that I can do, now that Tailwind is luckily out, I can go into Inteleon and I'll be able to pick him off because my Inteleon is max speed, and I know that he obviously doesn't have a Choice Scarf because A, he has to hold the mask that he is a part of, and he also went for Swords Dance. So I thought about going for a substitute here. But again, if he goes for that Trailblaze, he's going to be outspeeding me. That'll take care of my sub and honestly the rest of my team. So the next best option was just to go for a Snipe Shot and finish off this Ogerpon before it destroys the rest of my team. So he goes for a Spiky Shield. Not really sure, I guess just trying to prevent me from going for a I don't know, maybe an acrobatics, because I know that Inteleon also gets that, or just any other physical move. I guess he was just trying to scout out to see what I was trying to do. So we get off the Snipe Shot as the next turn and finish off that Ogerpon. So now it's down to a 2v2. And obviously Ryan isn't going to send his slower Incineroar in against my Inteleon, so he goes for the Sceptile. Now, Sceptile is his Terramon, which can Terra into Grass, Dragon, or I believe Water. And I wasn't sure what his plan was or what his set looked like. But I assumed that he was going to Terra, so going for just a simple Ice Beam wasn't the best option because he could Terra Water. So I decide that the next best option was to go for a substitute to try and scout out what he's trying to do. And I can see his terror type, so hopefully I can use the best move. You know, maybe he's Terror Dragon, so then I can get a big Ice Beam off, or I could just get an Air Slash for some more damage. So I go for a substitute. We see that he's going to Terra as expected, and this Sceptile's Terror type turns out to be Water, which is not ideal for us, but, you know, we've got to work with what we can here. So he's going Terra Water, and he goes for a Leaf Blade. He actually wins the speed tie because my Inteleon was max speed, and Inteleon's base speed is 120, which is also Sceptile. So obviously he was either max speed or he is running a Choice Scarf. So now, obviously, my only option is to go into Kleenex, and I was a little scared of getting, you know, swept by this thing. I thought that honestly it was maybe Choice Scarfed. I wasn't really sure what his plan was here, and I saw that a close combat, if he didn't have any HP investment, then a close combat was a 100% guarantee to Oko this Sceptile. So I decided that that was the best option. But boy, did I just completely forget everything, because he still has Incineroar in the back, who obviously has Intimidate and is going to decrease my attack. So now, yes, I'll be able to finish off his Incineroar with a big close combat, but now I am -1 in my defense and -1 in my attack, so close combat is not a guaranteed kill, even if he doesn't have any HP or defense investment. So we're in a really bad spot at the moment because we're -1. This Sceptile is probably going to be doing a lot of damage to us, but I decided that since close combat isn't a guaranteed kill, my best next option was to go for a Dire Claw and just hope for some hacks. There's a 50% chance that I can get a status. So he goes for a Terra Blast, and we survive even at -1. So we get the Dire Claw, and we get the Paralysis, which is so incredibly lucky. I honestly felt really bad, but I did celebrate a little bit. So there was a 50% chance to get a status, and then on top of that, there's a chance to get Sleep, Paralysis, or Poison. And I needed a Sleep or Poison to survive and to get the final hit against his Sceptile. So I actually did the calculations, and that was a 1/3 chance for that Dire Claw to give me the perfect situation to finish off the Sceptile. So Ryan, I'm a little sorry about that ending, but hey, that's Pokemon and that's how it goes sometimes. So GG's to Ryan. This was a super fun match and super close, and I can't wait to hopefully see you in playoffs if we both make it.